Grade 4 Mid-Module 6 Review Test. Number 6. All right. So it says Kim put her school supplies into her backpack. The items and their weights in kilograms are given below. So she had scissors at 34 hundredths, a sharpener at 16 hundredths, a ruler at 24 hundredths, a glue stick at 36 hundredths, a calculator at 38 hundredths, and a notebook at 42 hundredths. The first thing I notice is that some of her weights are listed in fraction and the others are listed in decimal. So if I'm going to do any comparing, it might be hard to do unless I put them the same way. A says plot the weight of each item on the number line below. So when I look, I notice that it starts at 0 and it goes to 1. So all of these spaces in the middle, they're 10 spaces, must be tenths. So this would be 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, 4/10, 5/10, 6/10, 7/10, 8/10, and 9/10, because 1, of course, is 10/10. You also could have written that in fraction, but I'm not even going to have room. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my 34 hundredths into a fraction so I can see it like that, and 16 hundredths into a fraction, and 24 hundredths into a fraction. And it says I need to plot the weight of each item on the number line below. So sometimes, usually people use a little X to do this, although like I said in a different module, I like to use the letter to represent. It's not a perfect system because like scissors and sharpener will both start with an S, but it's pretty helpful. So when I look at 34 hundredths, I know that 34 hundredths is the same as 3/10 and 4 hundredths. So I'm going to go all the way. I'm just going to bunny hop 1, 2, 3/10, and then my 4 hundredths would be if I had 10 little spaces in here, which my stylus will not let me draw. So you're going to have to imagine with me a little in there, okay? So I just went 1, 2, 3 spaces, tenths, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 hundredths, right? So the little tiny spaces. And so I'm going to write that that's where scissors would go, okay? Then I need to do the next one. So then a sharpener is going to be at 16 hundredths. So that would be 10, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, until I get to 16, right? I have 10 all the way to 16. So that's going to be the sharpener there. Very nice. Now I'm looking at a ruler, which is going to be at 24. So that's going to be 1, 2, and then 24. So a little bit in, not even to halfway, right? And so that'll be the ruler. Then I have a glue stick at 36. So 30, and then I have to go over 6 spaces to get my glue stick. Right? And just double checking, I have 36 spaces here and 34 spaces here. So make sure that your scissors is closer to 0 than your glue stick because it's got 36, so it's over a little further. And actually, I can tell that my line for my glue stick is going to be a little too far, so 36 would be there. Because now I have to put the calculator in at 38. So still we're going 1/10, 2/10, 3/10, and then 8 tiny little places, which will put it really close to the 4, but not past it. And that's where my calculator will go. And then the last one I need to do is 42 hundredths. So 10, 20, 30, 40, and then just 2. So that's where my notebook will be. It's just 2 over, which would be really close right up in there. Okay? Then B says to write a number sentence using decimals to record the weight of the glue stick in expanded form. So I'm going to take the glue stick, which is 36 hundredths, but I need to write it in decimals, so that would be 0.36, And then they want it in expanded form. So expanded form means that I take my 36 hundredths and I break it down into the 3/10ths and into the 6 hundredths. So we would write 0.3 plus 0.06, and that will give us our 3/10ths and our hundredths to add them together. Now I'm going to go look at C, which is actually very similar to B. So here C says, write a number sentence using fractions to record the weight of the ruler in expanded form. So you've got to make sure that you know how much the ruler weighed, or the mass of the ruler. And the ruler was 0.24. 0.24. But it wants us to record it in expanded form using fractions. So I need to start by knowing how to write 24 hundredths in a fraction, which would be that. Then you need to know that if we had done a number bond for 24 hundredths, we could have taken out 20 hundredths and 4 hundredths, and then the 20 hundredths can be reduced to 2/10ths. So that's what our expanded form will look like, is 2/10ths plus 4 hundredths. Now let's look at D. Kim packs the sharpener and scissors into the front pocket of her backpack. Together, these items weigh 50 hundredths kilogram. All right? Use the area model to show that 50 hundredths can be renamed as tenths. So that means as I go, I could count in my hundredths chart 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, until I got to 50. But wow, that would take a long time. So it's a little nicer if I can just go 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 of those tiny little boxes. Well, that's 50 hundredths. Can I do the same over here in tenths? Sure I can. We can go, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50. Well, there aren't 50 of them. There's only 5 of them because they are 5/10ths. It's not cut up into the tiny little boxes. We're doing the strips, which are each 1/10. So we have 5/10ths. It says use division to show how 51 hundredths can be renamed as tenths. So that's where we write 51 hundredths, and I need to use division. What can I divide by that's going to get me to 5/10ths? Well, here you'd have to know that 100 divided by 10 equals 10, and what you do to the bottom, you have to do the top. This works because 10 over 10 is 1. So I can absolutely divide by 1 without changing the value. And so we have 50 divided by 10 equals 5. So that is using division to show that it can be renamed as tenths. Now let's go look at F. F says, Kim places the glue stick into her pencil case with the calculator. Together, the items weigh 74 hundredths of a kilogram. Use a model and words, that's the important part, and words to explain how 74 hundredths can be written as a decimal and a fraction. So if we have 74 hundredths, we can write that as a decimal or a fraction, right? Because 74 hundredths would be 74 over 100. That's our fraction. Or we could put it into a place value chart with our decimal, and this would be tenths, and this would be hundredths. And so we could put in there, well, I have 0 ones, I have a decimal, I have 7/10ths, and I have 4 hundredths. So there it is in decimal form. So that's our model. We have a place value chart showing the fraction as a decimal, but we also have to say it in words. So we could write 74 hundredths can be written as a fraction with 100 as the denominator, right? The part on the bottom as the denominator. Or as a decimal with 7 in the tenths column, or the tenths place, and 4 in the hundredths column. So that's a lot to remember if you're trying to remember to write it. So it's really important that you understand how it works, that this 7 is the same as this 7 over 10, and that then the 4 is the same as this 4 over the hundredths. Okay? And let's go to G. So that was F. Now we're on G. Kim put the rest of the items in her backpack. The items in her backpack weigh a total of 1 90 kilograms. Using a model and words, explain how many tenths are in 1 90. So I have to draw some sort of picture and words. So I'm going to start with my place value chart. So if I have a place value chart where I have ones and then decimals and then tenths and then hundredths, and I need to explain how many tenths there are in 1 90. Well, already, hopefully we know that 90 hundredths divided by 10 over 10 would give us 9 tenths. So right there we have our 9 tenths. But what are we going to do about this 1? So really I have to cross out my 1 and decompose it. Well, when we decompose, how many do we get to draw? We get to draw 10, right? So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if I have the 10 here plus the 9, that gives me 19 in my tenths column. So now I've done it with a model. There's my picture or my model. Now I need to do it in words. So I will write, there are 19 tenths in 1 90 hundredths because there are 10 tenths in 1 and 9 tenths in 90 hundredths. So that's where we got the 19 tenths. All right, best of luck on your test.